President Trump's trade war with China and on-again, off-again tariffs continue to rattle markets and spread economic uncertainty. My next guest views it as an opportunity for his party to seize the moment. It's James Carville, legendary Democratic strategist who coined the phrase, "It's the economy, stupid." James has a new op-ed out in which he thinks his party should be, what he thinks his party should be doing to counter the president. He writes, quote, "In what will certainly be recorded as one of the most ignorant acts of political leadership in American history, the President of the United States has now willfully damaged the global economy with his tariff chaos. The path to stabilizing and strengthening the country starts when Democrats can take back the economic narrative from the Republican Party and persuade the majority of Americans to close the book on the Trump chaos." And James Carville joins me now. You say this is an opportunity for the Democrats. How do they seize it?
Right. Well, so right now the image of the party is in the 20s. We had a bad election. People think that we're irrelevant, that we're not part of the equation here. So we have a chance for a second introduction. We should take that and be on the side of people that are trying to make it. And I pretty much laid out what I thought in the piece, that this is a real opportunity for Democrats to get a better definition and to tell people who they really are, and not a bunch of cultural loonies wandering around in left field somewhere, but people that are really connected to the lives of families throughout the United States. So I think this is a marvelous opportunity for Democrats.
What's the right way, do you think, for Democrats to talk about the tariffs, and what's the wrong way for Democrats to talk about the tariffs?
Well, I mean, the right way to talk about them is their attacks on people that are trying to make it, people that are struggling, that want opportunity in this country, that are trying to get educated, they're trying to prove their lot in life. These tariffs are just going to clobber them and set them back. And that's not the way to go about this at all. They're completely ill thought out. And if you look at the savings accounts or the 401ks or anything that Americans have, they're taking a hit as a result of this, and the markets don't like it. The economy is weak. Let's see what the growth numbers here are coming up for the first quarter and see what the second quarter is. I suspect they're probably not going to be that great, but let's see. And most people feel like they've fallen behind since January 20th, and for good reason.
Should Democrats talk about the markets?
Well, I don't know if you have to talk about them. I think people see them. I think most people see them every day. But you could certainly say there's a complete lack of confidence in what we've been presented with from Wall Street to Main Street. I mean, there's 1,000 ways that you can articulate that connect with people. We shouldn't be just a party of markets, although the markets do significantly better under Democrats and Republicans. That's an absolute fact. But I think that we ought to focus more on how this is whipsawing the talk of these tariffs, and whipsawing American families and making it more difficult for them. And, a declining market doesn't make it very easy for a policewoman or a school teacher or, a guy that runs a dry cleaner or anything. It's tough out there, and we should acknowledge that and tell people we're on their side.
So you saw today that the president was in the Oval Office with the president of El Salvador, more or less refusing to try to get this El Salvadoran migrant back to the United States, who the administration admitted was sent there in error. This may or may not be a fight with the Supreme Court, but my question is, to what extent do you think now that the tariffs have really pulled down his approval rating, the president would rather be focused on deportations and immigration and get the press for that than have it focused on the tariffs?
So let me get this straight. This guy was here legally. There are a lot of people here that are legal that really contribute to our workforce, contribute to our productivity. He was doing nothing wrong. He was in a parking lot. He had a child that had challenges in the back seat. He was sent to El Salvador. The district court said he has to come back. The appeals court said he had to come back. The Supreme Court said he had to come back. There's not a single judge that has looked at this said he'd come back. And so the administration said, we're just not going to bring him back. Well, that is the very essence of a constitutional crisis. When you have an order from a court that's not that it needs to be ratified. John, you're a little young, but in 2000, at the turn of this century, the Supreme Court, without good reason, just went off and stole an election. And what we did, we said, well, the Supreme Court has spoken. And this is not something that's a minor thing where you just ignore a court order, and this tin horn coming in here in the White House and them refusing to pay attention to a legitimate order issued by American courts. This is not going to end well unless somebody gets this guy back in this country where he belongs. And he's done nothing to be in a prison anywhere, and it's a real shame.
It may all be, but in 20 seconds or less, do you think the administration would rather have that fight than more focus on tariffs and wild swings in the markets?
Well, you know, sometimes you got to fight on two fronts, and you can fight on the economic front, but also this is such an egregious trespass of justice that you just can't say, well, we'll just repair to the higher ground and talk about egg prices and forget about this guy. Well, I'm not for that. I think what's happened here is a really offense against the nation. It's an offense against the Constitution. It's an offense against order. You just can't let this go. I'm sorry, it might not be the most politically productive thing in the world, but sometimes you got to just get a backbone and take a stand.
James Carville, I appreciate your time. I appreciate you suggesting I'm too young to have been alive for the 2000 election. Thank you very much.
Well, you got more hair than me. Give me some, dude.
Caitlin, you were in the Oval Office meeting today. What more can you tell us about how this all unfolded?
Well, John, we had kind of seen the administration inching closer to this line of defense, essentially arguing that the judge here had overstepped her bounds, that they cannot be told by a court, even the Supreme Court in this case, what they have to do here when it comes to getting this man back to the United States, as the Supreme Court ruled in its 9-0 ruling, which the administration, the president, and his top advisor, Stephen Miller, were arguing was a victory for them today. But they'd been getting closer and closer, and then we saw it probably laid out the most explicitly clear in that moment in the Oval Office today, where I asked the president if he was going to ask the president of El Salvador, President Bukele, the first Latin American leader to come to the Oval Office since Trump has retaken power, to help facilitate his return. Obviously, his answer on that was quite clear in terms of seeking his return and trying to help facilitate that. And then he turned to the Attorney General Pam Bondi, who was saying that it's really up to El Salvador. And so when I asked President Bukele to weigh in on this, given they kept repeatedly pointing back and saying that they could not force El Salvador to do anything, even though they are paying El Salvador a lot of money right now to take in the other Venezuelans and other nationals that they are sending to El Salvador, he weighed in and essentially argued it would be preposterous. He compared it to smuggling this person into the United States, though of course he could willingly return him if he and President Trump both were seeking that. But the clearest takeaway as we left the Oval Office today was that they do not have any intention of returning this man to the United States. And so that does raise a lot of questions about what is going to happen in court next, because at one point the president seemed to get annoyed with the repeated questions about this very matter. But this is a huge fight that is playing out in the courts right now, and the Justice Department is actually under a ruling as of this moment, John, where every day they have to report by 5 p.m. what they have done, what steps they have taken to get Abrego Garcia back to the United States. And today that filing came about half an hour past the deadline, and it essentially just referenced the comments that were made inside the Oval Office today by the president of El Salvador and President Trump.